channel. My job today is to look like an old fisherman. Oh yeah, Miss Montypenny. And I'm just cleaning my glasses here a little bit to start off the video. And just an update on where I am with watch repair. So here today we've got a Waltham that I received from the US that needs some work. The gentleman said that he thinks he's just got a stem issue on the Waltham. He also said that the jeweler tried to wind it with a screwdriver. All right. So I heard that and I'm like, holy crap. This could be interesting. I don't know. It may be a Mainspring issue. It could be something that that can be dealt with. So I'm sure I can somehow get this thing going again and working properly. So just in case you're curious, this device up here is actually my microphone. It kind of found its way into the video. I'm not sure how it did it, but it found its way into the video. As well, I was working on a very nice valjoux 7750 for a friend of mine named Bill, and I'll just grab that watch right now and have a quick look at it. So there it is there. There's the valjoux 7750 Aqua Racer, gorgeous watch. I did a little polishing on the face here, but I was worried about removing the paint on the numbers, so didn't want to be too aggressive with that. And then I did a little bit of polishing on the strap, so it looks pretty clean. I tried to get rid of scratches because there's a lot of fingerprints on it right now, but it was the strap had gone through my mini ultrasonic cleaner, and just to get rid of the crap in it, and there's a lot of crap in it. Then as a trick, I used a water pick to actually get between the various the segments in the strap, to get all the gum that's in there, and this gets in there over years and years of use. It's got a really nice machine clasp here, and that's also been polished. I need to get this all polished before I return it properly. Just grab it and do some work on it that way. As well, there's only one issue with this watch. It may make me have to take this apart, and it's up to what Bill says. So, and actually it's the return on the upper subdial minute counting hand. And from everything I've read, I think it might be loose, because the looseness might be causing it, the return not to work properly. Which means I have to take this watch apart and get access to that subdial and see how it's pressed on. And maybe I switch one of the other, it's not the subdial pressed on, but it's the hand. The hand! So it's behind the hand. Anyway, that's my magic tricks. So this could be an issue. It could be just removing that dial and placing it back again, and then pushing it down and making sure it clears the subdial. I want to make sure that that dial doesn't touch anything, because that would be a different issue altogether. I said dial again, didn't I? It's early Sunday morning, so I'll have to apologize. You'll have to apologize. Someone's gonna Miss Montypenny. So I do a decent Sean Connery, right? Anyway. So I need to take that subdial second hand or minute hand and put that back. So I could flip it for one of the other hands. As you can see, the seconds hand is counting on the left-hand side, working perfectly. The thing is wound. I wound it last night. The other problem I have with this watch here is the screw-down crown doesn't work. Now that could be a problem I can't fix, because I've got a little bit of branding on the end of this crown, and you don't want to remove the crown, so I have to talk to Bill about that. Other than that, all the pushers work, and the chronograph works. If I press the chronograph here, I'll stop it so it doesn't go too far when it snaps back, and that works perfectly. And then I hit the return and it snaps back like that. So, and I'm hearing that, it's not exactly at the top, because I'm hearing that these chrono hands are pushed on. Some people glue them on. When it snaps back, if it's down here somewhere, if it's not between 2 and 10, it flings back and could move that chrono hand, but it's pretty darn close, so I wouldn't fart with that. And the hand below actually works really well. So So anyway, I may dive into this a little bit more. I'll talk to Bill about this, but that just irritates me. So because it irritates me, usually I am into fixing it. Fixing the irritation. I think my head is disappearing here. Look at that. It's amazing what you can do with graphics. So there we go. Head's back. Hope you folks out there have a sense of humor. So this is a really nice watch. It's very, very old. I did work on the back, on the case here. There's, wherever you see extra black gunk in there, that's actually polish, and need to remove that, likely with a toothpick, right, just to get rid of the stuff that's in there that doesn't belong, right? And all you do is ride a toothpick along that curve there, and then it comes out. So that's one thing to do. So anyway, that's something for Bill to do when he gets the watch back. So there you go. That's the ETA. ETA, or actually this was a valjoux, but pretty much the same, 7750 chronograph. It is actually working perfectly. It's just that stupid upper hand there decided it wanted to be off to the side. So I think it needs to be staked down a bit more. And I have to check the room between the hand and the face and the subdial to make sure it's not touching. I'm holding it sideways there, but I'll look at that really closely. So that's that. So today we're going to work on a different watch all together. All right, I'm back. So here we have a Waltham. It's an old one. Get a close-up on this thing. Look at that. I watched a Netflix show that caused this. Okay. It's biting your cuticles for some reason, for comfort when there's a horror show playing. So this is the Waltham. It's a very old one, actually. You can kind of tell it's old because of the, grab over my here, the machining here on the lip of the bezel. You only see that with the very old pocket watches, and this one is old. So, and it's got some nice engraving on the back. There we go. So it looks like it says FLF on the back as well. So there's engraving right here, buddies, right here, right there. So it's very beautiful engraving, and it's actually in good shape. And again, we've got this machining here, or machine engraving here on the edges, which is nice. And again, a little bit on the corners here on both sides, and that's also a nice thing. So I'll be putting my gloves on after I wash this thing for reassembly to make sure it stays pristine. If I look at the watch here, there's the movement, and we flip that around so you can read it. AWW, American Waltham Watch Company, AWW Co. Waltham, Massachusetts, 15 jewels. I'm going to have to look at those jewels under the microscope to see if they're still good. If I look at the winding mechanism here, I'm not getting any connection to the upper winding wheel here, and then translating it over to the ratchet wheel and the mainspring down below. So there's no connection there at all. So there could be a problem with the stem. Not sure. We'll strip that down and have a look at it. The movement itself, the balance looks like it's moving, which is always a nice thing, right? So, and if I take I got the world's longest piece of pegwood. Look at that. I'll just bring it up here. There it is there. I need to sharpen that, cut it in two and sharpen it so I can use it. But if I take a piece of pegwood like this and very carefully push, I'm going to make sure I push in the right direction here, right? See if that actually works. There we go. So I'm just pushing on the center wheel ever so slightly with my pegwood, and the watch is ticking. So that lets you know that all the other mechanics are functional, and I'm not pressing hard at all here, because if you do that, you can warp that wheel. You can do all. I'm just very slightly touching it, right? So the other thing you could do, just to see if that's running, you get a screwdriver out here, and I could see if there is actually a mainspring in there, right? So you can actually take a screwdriver and do this and wind this thing up a bit, And as you can see, I wound it up just a bit using the screw of the ratchet wheel, and it's running. So the mainspring is likely good, and we'll take that out and have a look at it. Center wheel's good. It looks like it's got flashed gold on the center wheel, which is nice. It's jeweled here for the third and fourth and fifth wheels. So it's actually third, fourth, and escapement here. So they're jeweled, upper jeweled. So then likely they're lower jeweled as well, if you're counting the 15 jewels. And of course the upper jewel here on the balance as well. So that's a good way of testing to see if this watch is still good. Just take a screwdriver and very lightly put a little bit of power onto the jobby doohickey, onto the ratchet wheel and onto the mainspring. So I'm going to just move this forward just a bit, perhaps. There we go. And remove the power from the mainspring so it doesn't effectively have any power on it when I'm disassembling it. So there we go. So all I did there was take the ratchet, take this screwdriver here, apply power, and then flip the click spring out of the way, or the click out of the way, and it just took the power off that watch. So that's not bad. So the case here, guaranteed 20 years. It's actually a nice condition here, and if I look at the case, you can kind of tell if what repairs have been done. I can see two there, one on the upper side and the one at the 9 o'clock position. So two servicings have been done, and this thing is 100 years old. So it's a shame you can't tell what year they've been done, because it's just a marker on the catalog of this watch repair person. If I look at it here up close and see if I can see a date. No, it's 41E15 and 21F1 on the side one, and the other one is 9713 and then J-5-2759. So maybe 2759. Nah. Anyway, used to think that was the date, but it's not. It's the the watchmakers actually are cataloging these things, and when they go into repair, and then repair it properly, right? So I'll start working on this watch and see what the story is with respect to the stem here, because I think it probably is a stem problem, and I have to somehow either replace that stem. I'm getting dizzy. Either replace the stem or make a new one. I haven't made a stem in a while, but I know how to make them. It's just it's tricky, but it's not impossible. So I can make a stem, but I've got a lot of different. I got a lot of parts, so I could possibly find the exact stem for this watch if I'm lucky, and then deal with that, right? So, and I know. Let me see if the watch will actually set. So if I pull this out like this, like that, is it setting? Yes, it is. So that means that the stem works. So it might be some other part in the watch that's not, like the crown wheel might not work to actually translate to translate this movement here to this upper winding wheel, right? So there's a wheel that's sort of 90 degrees to this wheel here, and that moves this way here. So we'll have to look at that, because I like the fact that I could set it. So if I can set it, then likely it's not the stem issue, because it's pulling out of the movement, and there's the setting mechanism that then disengages and allows it to do the work. So it might be some other part. We'll take this apart and have a quick look at it, and I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll diagnose it first before we actually strip it down and do the repair. So I'll strip it down a little bit, and I'll do that maybe right now. Alright, so the diagnosis of this pocket watch here, as I said earlier, it's got an issue that could be associated with the crown wheel. Not the crown wheel probably, but maybe the crown wheel and the upper winding wheel. But right now I just want to check and see whether this sets properly, and I need to set this at 12 o'clock so I can remove the hands correctly. And look at that hour hand, it's kind of jacked off to the left. So somebody somehow bent that hour hand. I can never understand how these hour hands get bent. I've seen it before. How does that happen? Like, does someone put their finger in there and just crank it? So, you know, getting the bezel off here, unwinding the bezel from the case. There's probably the threads there need to be cleaned, and there's probably gum in there of some sort, makes that harder. And I'll clean that. I'll clean the threads on that, and it should make it easier to put that on. But the crystal looks good. So this is the Bergeron 6938 hour hand remover. Protects the face, but these are crappy because every time I've used these, they've been too fat. So I can't get my very wide hand removers, and this distributes the stress along the end, the face, so you don't get a cracked face. So it's a porcelain, I believe, but porcelain? Maybe not. Anyway, it doesn't crack it. So I find that these things are totally useless. I bought a bunch of them off of AliExpress, and didn't cost me much money at all. They put Bergeron Swiss made number whatever on them, but I just think they're just chunks of plastic. So instead, you just take a piece of paper from the list that your wife made for you to go buy some stuff, and you say, okay, I'm going to cut that list up and use it for removing watch hands. So there, the honeydew list now turns into a really cool little watch hand removing device. So here you just cut a V into it and make sure that that V is completely out of the way, right? You get the V out, the wedge out, and then you use this paper along either side of that, and then it protects the face, again, like I'm saying, for scratching from your hand removers. So those are very good hand removers I'm using, by the way. They are Bergeron hand removers, and they did cost me a small fortune, but they're and I use the edge of them as opposed to the center, because for this size 12 pocket watch, I think it's a 12, you don't need to use, maybe a 16, I'll have to check that. You don't need to use the full, what was I saying anyway? I don't know. Let's keep going here. So grab these hands with my tweezers. There's the bent hand. Oh my God, look at this thing. So it must have been through WW2 and got bent somehow. Maybe the wind bent it. Probably not. Anyway, that's the bent hand. So get that out of the way. Not sure whether I'll try to repair that bent hand, because you could snap it and then there's another issue. And here I'm removing the second hand. I got a different set of hand removers for this. They're much smaller and they can fit underneath. And you don't apply any pressure downward on this, so you're really at no risk of cracking the subdial at all. I've never had one crack. The other method of doing is to use two small screwdrivers, and you put them underneath and just turn them, and that'll raise the hand up off that pivot. So that's the fourth wheel pivot. You really need to be careful that you go straight up on this and don't bend that pivot. I've seen people have told me they've bent the pivot on that, and not good at all. So that's not magnetic, it's just stuck. So like gum from 100 years of this watch existing. So that's that second hand. It's in excellent condition, no problem there at all. So now I've got the hands off the watch, and I'm going to flip this thing around. I got to is it decasing the movement? I got to take the movement out of the case, but get these little pieces of yellow paper out of the way. So pretty anal retentive about moving my tools out of the way, because I always have to get those watch hand removers out of the way so they too don't cause me major issues. I'm just cleaning up the face right now after removing the hands, and just took a little bit of the stuff off the face because it tends to get dirty. This face is not in too bad condition. Rodico is the best way of doing it, and you just shape it into a little tiny cone like this, or a little point, and then when it touches the face it bends, so you're not putting any stress on the face at all of the watch by using Rodico, and it's just sort of rubbing it, and this Rodico will pick up all kinds of crap from the from that. I've seen lines of stuff that's been there for a long time, and just go back and forth with that Rodico and get it to pick up that stuff. It doesn't remove the markings on the watch as well, and it's fairly safe. The pivot for the fourth wheel is sunken in just a bit, but in general I just stay away from that pivot because I don't want any problems to have happen here. So, but I will be putting gloves on later, and I'll rub this thing down again, just to make sure that we're good. Put gloves on right now. There we go. So I can't remember whether I tested the watch when I had my audio on or not, but I'm going to be dubbing over it anyway later on. So there we go. The hands are off the watch. I'll just lightly put this back over the case. I don't want anything to fall out. And I've already unscrewed this, so I just need to lift it up or let it fall out or do something. Just it looks like it set down again, which sucks. Just unscrew it a bit more. There we go. I got a cough. There, I think I got too much dust in this room here. So there we go. That's a beautiful movement, right? And as I said earlier, when I try to wind it, it doesn't wind. But when I pull this out and set the hands, it does set, which means that the actual the watch, there's a mechanism in here. I think it's called a crown wheel that might not be engaging with the upper winding wheel. So the stem might be okay. It might be that problem. And as I showed you earlier, when I put a little power on the mainspring, by just turning the screw on the ratchet wheel here, because that'll turn this overall device, then it does work. So the watch will work if that's done now. It looks like the watch hasn't been cleaned in a billion years, so that's probably the main problem with this watch. But let me get my watch pad out here. So this is the Bergeron 5395. It's gelled, which is kind of cool. So it's a gelled watch pad. So now I could put that down, and when the center wheel here and it's basically the hour wheel coming up. It's not the cannon pinion, but it's the hour gear coming up. So when that hour gear comes up and that goes over the cannon pinion, it sticks out just a bit, as you can see if I do sideways. When you put it on this gelled pad, that just goes in, so it doesn't harm anything. It doesn't provide extra pressure on that pad when you're doing that. So that way I can just remove the case screws here very carefully, and you wait till you hear them tick. There you go. I heard one tick on that case screw, and then you lift it up. Look at that. It came up with the there you go. That's not good. That means my screwdriver is magnetized. So, in classic watchmaking form, I have to show you how to demagnetize that. So that's not good. That means the screwdriver itself is magnetized, which is kind of poopy. Alright, in prep work for this watch work, I should have made sure that I didn't have a magnetism issue, but sometimes you can't tell. And I demagnetize these screwdrivers a lot, and they seem to always magnetize. This is a made in China demagnetizer. That's what it looks like. You can pick one up, and it's just a coil and a button. I have a vintage demagnetizer that I'm afraid of. I always stand back when I press the button, or wear giant gloves, just in case this thing blows up on me. I already have a converter from Europe to North America for the plugged in, because I tend to have to demagnetize a lot. So all you do here is you take your screwdriver, and you put it in here like this, and then you hit the button, and then you draw the screwdriver out of that slowly, like that, and that should align all those little molecules so they're no longer magnetic. So if I touch this screw again, let me just grab the screw, and I don't want this to fall in here, so I'll just put it right there. And let's see if this picks the screw up. Nope, look at that. It's not picking the screw up. So this is not magnetized, and the screw is obviously not magnetized either right now because it's not sticking to the screwdriver. So it's demagnetized. Now I'll take out the other case screw. I should probably have removed the the pocket watch chain. Let's see if this works. And I just heard the click, and that's just the thread unlocking. And then you grab this like that, and then place this out of the way. Yeah, the thread just unlocks. The chain here, I've left the chain in. I don't know whether I need to take that out or not. Probably don't. Just leave it where it is. And, you know, this watch can remain vintage, right? So what you would normally do is pull the stem out like this, and then it frees up. There we go. And it frees the stem up a bit from where it goes into the movement, and then you can just lift the movement or the case up and walk that out like that. There we go. Now, if I look at the stem, I see no evil. I see no evil. So that stem looks pretty good. No problem at all. And I'll just take this case and move it out of the way. And now I got the movement. So now the first thing I do with these movements, because I fear all, is I remove the balance. So I can't get at the balance because this watch has a dust cover on it. So these dust covers are fairly easy to remove. And they're actually easy to align because there's a big giant hole here, and that's aligned with that. So you usually take a screwdriver, and it's right where there's little tiny dimples here on the side of the dust cover. And you can take a small screwdriver and just wedge it into the dimple and just twist it. Now this device, or this dust cover, probably hasn't been on in a billion or off in a billion years, so it might be a little tricky to take off. So, but I usually wedge that in and just twist it. So we'll see if that works. That was actually better doing that than twisting. And just be careful. Don't put too much pressure on anything when you're working on pocket watches. Just be careful and don't overexert. Like if I push down super hard and slip, my screwdriver could go right into that balance. And you have to avoid the hairspring at all times, because if you foul the hairspring, you've got a whole other problem. I'm almost ready to take this off. A couple more turns. Usually your thumb on the edge here will keep the gap that you've retained. I do have a long thumbnail today, but I try to trim those down, but they're actually pretty handy when they're longer. And people out there that do watch work would understand what I'm saying. So there we go. That's sort of ready for the balance to be removed. The balance cock needs to be removed. Let me look at my screwdrivers here. I want to get one that's the right size. That's too big. It's just marginally too big, right? So if I take this screwdriver here and just measure it across the screw like that, that's the right size. So I'll loosen this for now. Loosey-goosey. And while I'm loosening it, I'll show you this tool I bought recently. It's a Bergeron. Let me see. I buy really good tools, by the way, so in case you haven't seen that before. And I've mentioned this stick before, and I'm telling you, it was really good when I did the valjoux 7750 watch. It's a 7010 polyamide plastic Bergeron stick. This is a pretty friggin' handy. Now normally I would take a piece of pegwood and rest it on the top of this balance while I'm unscrewing this, but because I've got this very beautiful Bergeron stick, I gotta use it. So it just holds the balance in position so it doesn't rock off the pivot. There's little, I'll call them nubblies, that align the balance with the holes. There's two holes underneath the balance cock here that align it. So when you're taking the screw off, you don't upset that. So what I need to do now is go get my balance cock balance holder. All right, this balance holder here is one I got off. I got this from AliExpress from China, so it works okay. I unstuck that because I was doing another job, and I think I was working on that valjoux, and I was sticking this on, and it kind of unstuck. So if I press this down, it might stay on. Yeah, there we go. That's not too bad. So I just want to estimate from center to where this hole is, so I can look through here, and at the whatever it's called, thingamajobby doohickey is the best name for anything, I think. So I center this up here, and I look at this, and I look at and see that it's not aligned, so I can move that in more, like that. And stop. So now the distance between here and here is the same as the distance between where the screw is on the balance and the balance itself. So now when I take the balance out, very careful. I may or may not need 2 screwdrivers to take it out. Usually, or 2 tweezers. Usually you're good with just lifting it carefully from the edge, like that. And I like to lift the whole thing up, and then you angle the watch, and then it comes out like that. So that's the safest way of doing it. And then you leave it where it is. Don't move it. Move the tool over to where the balance is, because it prevents you hitting your elbow on something or some crazy things happening, right? And then I can just lower this balance over this piece of faux leather. I love that term, faux leather. And now the balance is resting there on the faux leather. Now I could wind this up a bit so the balance spring has got less stress on it. May not be necessary, but I'll just show you what I do. So pull it up like this. And like I said, try not to move that out of the way, but as I do this, I'm winding this up so it's getting closer to the tip of that. The other one here, got to make sure this hole is good. So what drops through here is the there we go. The roller table drops through that center hole there, and then the arms of the balance are resting on the faux leather. And there we go. So the mainspring has got, or sorry, the hairspring has got very little pressure on it. So that's a great way of storing it. And then I actually take this out of the way, because it's usually the last thing I do. And I dropped all my plastic jars just now, so I put this over the top of it so it doesn't get any dust on it. So I just put it out of the way and then put that on top, and there we go. And I just look behind me and I got jars everywhere. So that's that. I've already taken the pressure off of the mainspring. I think the watch society I belong to here is having a basic pocket watch servicing course that somebody is running, so it should be a very good course. But what I want to do here then is start removing some of the parts on the watch, and what I'll do first is I'll remove the ratchet wheel over the mainspring. So and here the click should hold that ratchet wheel in place with enough pressure that you can unscrew the ratchet wheel. And I can see I need a bigger screwdriver for this. Again, you got to use the right size tools for the right job, right? So I'm very meticulous, and I usually put my screwdrivers back so they're not in the way of anything. I'm missing my red screwdriver wherever that is. So, and get other things out of the way too, because I had these hand removers sitting there. So just take them, grab them, and get them the heck out of the way, because you'll hit them with your elbow, you'll hit them with something, and then you'll be really pissed off. I'm not using this device anymore at this point in time, so I'll store this out of the way so it doesn't poke things. And then there we go. So that's gone. Then I'll then I have my double tweezers. Probably don't need a second set, but I'll leave them there anyway. I got my dust ring here, and I'll put that over with the watch. I just basically put the case and the watch over to the side over there, so it's out of the way. Now I have to lower myself a little bit more, and then I can start disassembling the ratchet wheel. So looking at this screw here to see if this is the right one. Let me think. I just look and see how tight these are, and I don't want them to be at too much of an angle, because if they're too much of an angle, then they're going to they're going to slip. This one here needs to be tightened. So these screwdrivers here can get loose, and there's a screw right on the top there that you can use to tighten the screwdrivers. I know I'm being very detailed today, so you'll have to bear with me, but these are things I do as I'm doing watch repair, and I see that one of my tools is not set properly. I set the tool, then I get back at the work, right? So it's not always, you can't just walk around and make sure all your tools are working perfectly. sometimes have to fix as you go. So this should be able to snug in where I don't have to put pressure on it. Sometimes I will put my thumb down on that wheel. And this is a very shallow screw with a very wide head normally, right? So this screw here tends to be very shallow with a very wide head. You can't put too much pressure tightening this because you'll snap the screw head right off. And then you have a whole other problem. So I take that and put that out of the way, and I can usually come in here and just grab that wheel and like that very carefully and put that with the screw, because when I go to my watch cleaning device, I will probably I will match the screws up with the device. Now for this one here, because it's going to be freewheeling, I usually put my hand down. This could be reverse screw, so just check and see if it's a reverse screw to start off with, and it isn't, so it screws the normal way, right? So sometimes you'll see in watches that there's actually a little symbol on here that tells you to screw that the other way, so it's not righty-tighty, it's lefty-tighty, and you just sort of test it. So I tested it there by tightening it just a smidgen, and then I could see that it was not working. So here I can lift this off. If I have problems lifting this off, I just use Rodico to lift that off. See, now I'm exposing the mechanism here that was not working properly to wind the watch. So the question is, there is the gear on the bottom of the winding wheel here, as you can see that. Let me just use my gloves again. See that gear on the bottom looks like a crown? That gear needs to interface with this gear right down here. I think it's called the crown wheel. So the crown wheel, and there was no interface with the crown wheel, or it wasn't turning, which is a different thing. So I have bench keys here, which are invaluable. You need a set of bench keys to do watch work. There's a bench key there, so I'll match this bench key up with where the stem goes, and it just sort of becomes the stem. And when I go here and I push that in, right, it doesn't seem to be pushing in at all. And so when I turn the stem here, that crown wheel doesn't really want to turn. So there's a setting mechanism on here that's not working properly, right? So let's remove the face of this watch now, so I don't have to deal with any face issues. I sometimes remove that early, but when I'm using my gelled pad, I'm not as concerned with it. So, and to remove the face from the watch, there's usually these little dial screws here, and they're grabbing onto the dial feet, and you just have to line that up. I don't need to pick a super small one. And like I said earlier, I'm missing my red screwdriver. So I just have to line that up, and then these things have been in there for 1 billion years. So there, just loosen the dial screws up, and then after I loosen them up, I tighten them again once I get the dial out, because there's no need to clean these things. They're just micro screws, and you don't want to lose them. Even in your cleaning machine, you might displace it and lose it, which is not good, and then you're going to be mad at yourself. So once you get these dial screws, I just screw them so they're flush to the dial itself, and then I can usually take a screwdriver here and wedge it in very carefully at an angle. Again, when you're wedging a screwdriver in here, don't do it on like this or straight, because it could slip and scratch the face of the watch, and you don't want to do that. So you just want to wedge it in like that, and then you use your thumb over here to hold the position like that. So same thing you do in card magic. So when you're holding a position of the card deck as you remove it, you basically have your thumb in the way to hold that position in the card deck. I'll show you that in a second. So the thumb is used that way as well. So it's probably a card magician was the first guy that did watch work, right? What do you think? Probably, maybe, no. So I just use a bigger screwdriver to get a bigger gap, turn that around, and then again slowly move that up, because you're just taking the dial feet out of the holes right now. But you want to take your time, because you don't want to bend the dial feet, right? So do I have them out? I think I may have them out now. There we go. And there's the dial feet there. And as I was explaining, just take the dial and move it out of the way. And if you're going to do work over a long period of time, put a dust cover over that dial, right? Now you only have to take a few parts out here. See, one of my screws did come out, which I think it did anyway. I see a screw on the mat here. So let me look. Yeah, there, that one, screw there came out, and that has a possibility of being lost. I remember I did a video there a week ago, and some guy wrote me and said, I saw the screw on the same Bergeron device, and he was yelling at me on the screen saying, get the screw, there's the screw is right there, the screw is right there. So, which I thought was pretty funny. Anyway, I ended up finding that screw, which was good. So I found it in where I was holding my tools. so I actually lost the stupid screw, right? So, and then I found it. So that this came out. So I just tightened these down a bit. So I just put them all the way in and put them a little bit tight, because when I put this in the cleaning machine, I don't want them coming out. I want them to be exactly where I put them before. So just very carefully tighten these like that. And see, I've got the balance out of the way, so I'm not as concerned. So now I can take the hour wheel out like that, and on the top of that hour wheel is the what is that called? I always try to remember what these are called, but anyway, it's the that's the device that pushes down on this. Actually, it should be bent up a bit, and it uses the face to push down on the hour wheel, and that way the hour wheel always stays in contact with the minute wheel, right? If I can get the minute wheel out now, I'll take it out. Just to get it out of the way, and usually you can just slide it out like that. There we go. And now I've got to remove the cannon pinion. Some of these cannon pinions you can just grab with your tweezers and pull straight up and they'll remove, like this one. There we go, that was good. But I do have a tool that I do use for removing cannon pinions, and it works extremely well, and that's the ones that get stuck I use this tool for. And this is the tool here. That's the tool there. If you see one of those on eBay, grab it, because they're really great. And they grab the cannon pinion like that, and then they pull up. And then these faces here rest against the watch plate, and just very carefully pull the cannon pinion straight up. You don't want to bend the cannon pinion as you're pulling it up, because you'll ruin the cannon pinion. So now I'm looking at this watch here, and I'm thinking, okay, this might be the problem here, but I don't know. It seems to be, there might be a lever on the other side that's not connecting properly. So I'll end up taking a photo of this, because I want to make sure I put it back properly. So let me just remove some of this stuff first, okay? Cannon pinion's out. I could likely put this watch in my movement holder now, so I don't put too much stress on this gel pad, because that pivot there could poke a hole in my gel pad. So I'll just rest it down like this for a second, grab my, as you guys all know, Myers number 58 movement holder. This thing was even good with the valjoux 7750 watch, which I was impressed with. And I'll just show you this movement. I've got 4 of these now, so they're priceless, man. One of them I think I bought for 250 bucks. I just said I gotta have it. So gotta have the right tool for the job, right? So if you hire a shitty watchmaker that uses shitty tools, you're going to get a shitty job. So that's my advice. Make sure you get a good watchmaker that uses the high-end tools. And that would be me. Now, I'm not sure if I'm a watchmaker or a pocket watchmaker. So I'm going to leave this in for now as I flip this over and then remove the plates. And there's nothing on the side I'm worried about. So when you have a lever set watch, there's a small lever that comes out on the side, and you have to make sure you don't squish the lever with your tool. And now I got to take the gel pad and put it back into its home. So, and it goes into this big, beautiful wooden box here. And I put that in, and I've got a new set of drawers for storing tools and stuff, and they're friggin' cool. They're cool. So you put that in. There's a little button here that you press, and then this moves forward. You can push it in and it clicks. And then once you've got it forward like that, you just turn this and it grabs it. You don't have to turn it a lot, but this is sprung like this, as you can see, so it can only put so much pressure on the edge of that movement. So So I love the Myers number 58 movement holder. Somebody years ago, maybe it was Old Hippie from the Watch Fix website or blog, that told me to get one of these. But if it was OH, then thanks a lot, because these things have been priceless. So now I can start removing the plates here. The first one I want to remove here, I believe, is this plate here, because I want to get this out of the way and then just get the gears out of the way. So again, I don't really need to have my my other device there, because I can use my finger and just rest it on top of the plate. Again, you take your screws off, and then you wait until you hear them tick, and then you pull them up. If you remove them before they tick, you could strip the screws a bit, and you don't want to do that. So you just hold the thing down like this. And I heard the tick. You can actually hear it. If I shut up, you could probably hear the tick. No, I don't think so. The mic's too far away. So here, do the same thing here. And again, you're always paying attention to where the pivots are, and you don't want to screw with pallet forks or anything like that. You don't want your screwdrivers to slip. But you have to, when you're holding a screw, you have to have the ability to rotate the screw, the tweezers, without dropping the screw. Okay. Now, if I just let that go like that, fine. But if I do this, I use my fingers here to actually hold. I just dropped it, but I use the fingers here to provide pressure on the tweezer as I turn it, and I just grab that down below like that, pressure, and then turn. Right. So you should actually practice that, because when you take a screw like this and you got to put it in, you got to actually turn the screwdriver, and you don't want to lose the part. Right. So practicing how to turn the screwdriver like this without the part falling is necessary. So it did fall at the end there, but too bad. I had very good success before that. So now I just want to pry these off. So this seems to be able to come off very easily. So not a lot of prying required. Sometimes you have to pry. If you're prying at all, you don't want to leave marks on the movement. If there's no gap on the bottom, what some pocket watches have for you to put your screwdriver in, then go to the edge here, because this area won't be seen at all, and just take a very small screwdriver and put it in like this at an angle, and then twist it, and that'll pry that off. Right. So that's, you want to work on areas that are not seen on the watch. So I lift that straight up like that and out of the way. So turn that, and then I'll be looking at the jewels under my stereo microscope to see if there's any issues there. You can look at them just by your eyeball or with your eyepiece. You take this airy loop here, and you look within your eyepiece. I wonder if I can zoom in like that. What the heck? And then from that, you can angle the screw. Let's see if I can do this. You can actually angle. It doesn't seem to want to focus on the. There we go. I had a little focus there. And then you can see the light reflecting off the jewel there. And you can actually see whether that jewel is cracked or not by looking at the light reflecting off that jewel. That's one way of doing it. And I get in close and I look at these, and I'm thinking, these ones are in brilliant condition. But then when I get under the microscope, I might see some inconsistency in the jewels that could cause a problem. So that's the phase 2 part, right, is looking under the microscope. Now I just have to lift these wheels up. So this is, somebody called this the grand wheel, but anyway, I call it the center wheel. So take the center wheel out. This is a really nice center wheel. It looks like it's gold flashed, or flashed gold, whatever. So that's very beautiful. Center wheel. So these watches are well decorated. Now I can't take this wheel out without this plate being removed. So probably should have removed this plate first, right? And then I would have been able to get that wheel out, but I didn't see it. So I just talked my way through it. Sometimes I'll remove one plate first and not the other, but it's of no consequence in this case, right? So there we go. If you have a watch and you're just removing or replacing the balance on the watch, then you can likely remove this plate, remove the balance, put it back with the new balance. I said balance, I mean mainspring. So if you're trying to get to the mainspring, you could probably just remove this plate, take it up, take the mainspring out, because it'll slide out of place, right? Replace the mainspring, and then away you go again. Now, but if you're doing that and you brought the watch into to a watchmaker to replace the mainspring for the watch, then you might as well get it serviced, right? Because you're not being very bright if you bring it in like that and don't service it. So here, just like the last one, I just see if this plate ends up being loose at all, and so this one's on a bit tighter. So I do want to find a groove here to lift this up, and I'll just take it from the edge like I said before, like that, and just go in with probably a smaller screwdriver in this case, like that, and just wedge it up. Oh, what do I have, another screw? Yes, I do. So there's another screw to take out. My mistake, folks, my mistake. Well, it's obviously not your mistake because you're just watching the video, but there's a screw right here. There's 3 screws on the top plate here. So just like anything in watchmaking, I realized that I was, I applied a little tiny bit of pressure and nothing happened. So I thought, okay, don't apply more. Back off, see what the problem is. So never apply too much pressure. I was in the Army years and years ago, and the first thing they taught us in the Army was the right tool for the right job. That's what they used to say. And so this should lift straight up. There we go. Right tool for the right job, and never apply too much pressure when not needed. So there we go. That's the plate there, and so I'll take off. That'll go into the scrubby dubby dub machine, and now these wheels are just loose now. So you just pull these wheels up and get them out of the way, and I'll show you how I'm laying the parts down after. But I grab the pinion on the top, lift it straight up. So this wheel here, that's the 4th wheel where the second hand goes. You really got to be careful that you don't screw that up. I've repivoted 4th wheels before. It's a lot of work, so I don't want to play with this, but you can, once it's washed, you can have a look and make sure there's no issue with the 4th wheel. But they can be a pain, so you got to be very careful. And when I put the 4th wheel down, I put it with that pivot facing upward. And this here, the escapement is kind of touchy as well. There's the escapement on this watch, and it's got a pivot pivots on both sides, and then the pinion in the middle. So I grabbed the pinion there. I think before I said I grabbed the pivot, but I didn't. I grabbed the pinion. So there's the barrel, the mainspring. So I'll take this apart, and if it's 50 years old, it needs to be cleaned and put back in. May or may not have enough power. You can replace these mainsprings if you don't have enough power. Usually I put them back in, and if I find there's still a power issue, then I'll find another mainspring and use that. So here you do want to put pressure on on the bridge for the pallet fork, because if you don't put pressure on the pallet fork bridge when you're unscrewing it, it pops out. It could foul the actual pallet fork, and then it's a whole new game, folks, a whole new game. So I'll just get my screwdriver in here. This might be too small a screwdriver. Let me see. I'm going to go get another one here. It's my black one. I think this one here might work. Again, you can measure the screwdriver against the screw to see if it's the right size. This one is exactly the right size, but I'm not sure if the tip of the blade is right. So you want to make sure that is also fitting in perfectly, and it doesn't look like it is. So that's not the right part. The red one is the right one. Where the heck is the red one? I'll be right back. I'm going to find the red screwdriver. Well, I always put my screwdrivers back, and for some reason the red screwdriver does not seem to be found. It seems to have taken a jaunt somewhere, so I'm going to have to use the black screwdriver, which is almost the same size, right? Just a little bit smaller. And bear down on that. There we go. And I'll use my Bergeron holder here to hold this part in place while I remove the screw. It should come straight up. There we go for the bridge. And then again, turn this around as opposed to reaching. So turn that around so you can get good access to that other screw. And you want to hold that bridge down while you remove this screw. And that will prevent the bridge from hopping and potentially fouling the pallet fork. So grab that carefully like that, and then this should come straight up. If I'm lucky, this will come straight up. I can grab it by the screws like this, the screw hole, and then pull straight up like that. And the pallet fork is stuck to it, so I'll want to turn that around very carefully like so, and there it is laying on the mat. And then I can go in here and grab that pallet fork straight up, maybe. So it's stuck a little bit. There we go. The pallet fork now is, and I usually clean the pallet fork in lighter fluid on its own. And I could throw that in with the lighter fluid as well, but I could also put it into the watch cleaning machine. Now I'm looking at this stuff here to see what the heck is going on, because this is what happened before, and the reason why the watch wouldn't wind. So I'm gonna grab my bench key here and see what kind of action I'm getting on this, right? So let me just loosen this up like that, turn that around a bit like this, tighten it up. That way I've got access to it like so. And then let's take this bench key and see what kind of action I have. So that seems right. Now when I push in like this, yeah, it's not pushing in, because that would typically take, there's a lever in the bottom that should move when I push that in. That should move that upward. So if I just take my tweezers, because they're brass and they don't mar anything, and I move this, so this seems to move, which is nice. But the question is, why is this not moving when I push it in? Because this would typically move. So I'm going to have to look this up, because this mechanism here might be what's fouled. The other thing too is it looks like the screw is loose on the top of this. So let me see if that might be causing a bit of the problem. There, tighten that screw up, and let's see what happens now. No. That is weird, man. It's really weird. It's not grabbing this ratchet wheel. Looks like it's free, which might mean the ratchet wheel is in fact stripped on the inside. The guy that sent me the watch said that the watchmaker took a screwdriver to try to actually turn the watch. So that really pisses me off. I want to know who this dude is so I can go visit him, because he took a screwdriver and he probably stripped this wheel here. And that means that's not good. That means I may have to source this wheel somehow. So let me just take a photograph of this, because I'm going to have a look at it. I think this wheel is usually free until you yeah, I don't like that at all. So no, you know what, I changed my mind. It wouldn't be the wheel that's stripped, because when you're turning this, again, it's a little diagnostics here, this device here should be pushing this straight up like that, right? So there might be something underneath the setting mechanism, and then these things turn, right? Like that. But somehow this is not going straight up. So is there something wrong with that? It's usually in this position, and then let me see, because that would be in the winding position, and then when you set it, you pull it out, and then this goes back like that. So it might be something inside of here that's causing the problem, because that would be in this position like that and winding the watch, and then this would go back like this. I'm going to have to look at this mechanism to see what the heck is going on. This seems to be fine, this plunger here, but maybe it needs to go back as well. Let me see. So I'll fart around with this for a few minutes and see if I can figure this out before I disassemble it. So this is rather interesting. So this spring here needs to be on both sides of this pawl, and it would be pushing downward to push the clutch wheel forward, right? So this has got to have a downward position, and so the spring here actually gets set. There's a notch on the edge here that grabs this thing right there. That's the notch there. And then let me just see if I can just move this around, and then it's stretched out like that, and there we go. So now it's grabbing. So now it's going back and forth. So the spring here was not set properly with the notch that it's supposed to be set on. So now when I turn this wheel here, right, it's going to wind the watch, right? And when I push the wheel inward, or when I pull the wheel outward, let me see how this would work here. It's not going to work that way. Yeah, I think when you're setting the watch, it's out, right? So it should be, maybe it should be pushing it away, and then when you push it inward, the watch goes the other way, right? So, which means that this here mechanism here needs to be on the other side of this plunger. That might be the main problem here. So if I take this again and I grab this and then try to move that to the other side of the plunger, what's going to happen? I can't actually get it to the other side of the plunger because there's a screw here is in the way. I know that has to go on the other side of the plunger, which means the plunger has got to be pushed in. So let's keep diagnosing this for a second. So if I loosen this here, right, because this was a little bit loose, then that might have caused that plunger to get on the wrong side of this pawl, or this arm here. I'm going to fart with this again here. I'm trying to figure out what to use, tweezers and non-tweezers. So if I look at that and I say, okay, my plunger actually has to be on the other side, right? And I'm hoping that screw stays where it needs to be. This crown wheel, I'll move the crown wheel all the way over like that, and then grab a needle and push that plunger in. I just want to make sure this all works properly before I disassemble it. So I grab this needle here and push this plunger onto the other side of this, right? And of course is it working? The plunger is, yes, the plunger is on the other side. Now I'm going to tighten that screw again before that thing flies right off. I think the spring is in position. I don't know. And now I'll get the bench key and see if it actually does something here. So there we go. So if I press that, look at that, folks. So there we go. So now the plunger is doing its job by pushing this pawl back. And when I push that back, it pushes this into the winding position. So that's the normally set position. When I let go, like that, it takes the clutch wheel and moves it back. So that's how it was supposed to be set, right? And the spring then works. And so when the screw loosened up here, when this screw here loosened up, it caused the stem, the very tip of the stem, to go underneath this arm here, and then the arm did no longer work with the setting mechanism. So nothing's broken, which is great, which means that I just have to disassemble this whole thing and then put it back together again. So let me just take a picture of this so I can see what it looks like. I always do that just in case I kind of forget how the whole thing goes together. Take a picture like that, and then I'm going to unscrew this plate here. But before I do that, I'm just going to take the spring out and grab that. Now that I know how this works, I'm an expert now, and I can just grab this spring like this, and just take it out of the way and just move that spring out of the way completely, and I can just unscrew this mechanism. And again, I'll take a picture of this so I can make sure that when I put it back together I'm doing it the right way. So I'm using my $1 billion watch pointing device here, and like that, and grab this. I got to remove some of these things out of the way, and this upper plate, then I can grab the upper plate here like that, and then I'll take a picture of this, and when I put that screw back later on, I think I'll use a little tiny bit of Loctite to make sure that this doesn't go away. So this is how the whole cam mechanism works. Take a picture of that. Yeah, and then it's got, basically there's a screw here holding that in, and that screw is also loose. So if I just pick this up here, that's that arm, and there's a screw holding this in here, and then there's this here which needs to be in exactly this position, right? Because that'll move back and forth, I believe. Yeah. And I can't remember what those are called, but there's a name for that too. It seems to be a name for everything in a watch. What's the deal with watch names? So I took a picture, which is great. The good news, though, if I lose a screw, is that I got like a ton of screws. So, and I'm going to make sure these screws love each other. So they're going to be next to each other, and then I can take the whole stem mechanism out like this with the clutch and everything. No, I can't do that yet. There's one more thing I need to do to take this out. And I've learned this lesson a few times. Flip this over, and there's a plate right there, folks. And that silly little plate actually does a job. So let me just undo that plate. Again, I'm going to take another picture just in case I'm stupid and forget. And this plate here holds all that crap in from the other side, right? Which is there. The thing just fell out. And the minute you loosen that plate, the plate falls out and everything is good. So I'll just put that stem over there, and this might just come straight up. There we go. And I'll leave the screw with it. There we go. It seems to want to be a friend. And then there's this device right here, right? That's all part of that, as you can see, and that's where that stem pokes through, right? So you got to put that back in place and then screw it down, and there's an intermediate wheel on the top of that used for winding the seconds hand. So I'm going to take a picture of that too, because I want to make sure I put that wheel back in the right place. Take a close-up of the wheel. I want to see if it's cammed. That's the main part when you're taking these photos, is that you're seeing whether there's a cam on that wheel in any way, right? And if there's a cam on that wheel, right, then it has to go back in this exactly the same place. Let me have a look at this up close. So I know that this wheel can come off. There we go. And does not look like it's cammed. If it's cammed, it's going to face outward. So there's that wheel, and there's this device here, and I almost have the watch stripped down. I clean that watch without taking the. There's a jewel on the bottom here. That's for the escapement, and then there's some jewels here I got to look at to see what condition they're in. I usually leave this arm in. I don't take that out, and that's it. So this is done. Let me look at the mainspring here while I'm working on this and take this out. There's a quick look at most of the parts of the watch in many pieces. So, and then I've got over on the side, over here, I've got the case. So the case is over here nice and safe, and then the face is with the case. What I normally do here is I take the that's nice. It's funny, the back of the case is stuck to the bezel for some reason. They like each other. So I just remove these here. And what I do typically is I put this face, just move this up a bit, show you what I'm up to. I'll put the face in the back of the case like this, and then put the front on like that, and that protects the face from dust. And I've got the movement over here, and the case over there, and it can just go off to the side. So now I got to take the barrel apart. Just move my camera over a bit, and let me see what type of barrel this is, because it can be a pain in the butt. I don't know whether this will come straight out or not. Nope. So that's, oh, I think it's one of those barrels that is like this, which can be a real pain. So what you do in this case is you reverse the direction of that barrel to take the hook off the arbor. So let me just take a picture of this barrel. This is an ancient barrel from an ancient watch. So take a little picture, and then I know I hold it like this, and I can't remember which direction. So that when I pull it this way, it's kind of winding the watch, right? Or winding the barrel. So if I move it the other way, it should remove the arbor from the barrel. There we go. And there it is. So there's the arbor. And I've noticed with these barrel arbors here that are from this kind of a barrel, that if you look at the arbor here carefully, it's rounded right here. So right at the top is sort of beveled a bit, and that allows you to, when you're pushing the mainspring back in, there's the mainspring, it allows that bevel, it allows the mainspring to slide over that bevel, and then allows this the cap or the top or the bottom, whatever you want to call that. It's not the bottom or top, obviously. It allows that to slide in, right? So when you put these back together, you kind of hold it at an angle, and then you roll it, and it will slide back into place, right? So that's pretty handy. And then the arbor is part of this, so it can be removed. So if I poke that, I think that just comes out, yeah. So I'm going to take a little picture of that to make sure I put it in properly again. And this just saves me time if I'm stupid while I'm doing my watch work, right? So saves me a bit of stupid time. So then all I do is take this like this, and then pull this straight out, and it's all gummy. This thing is gummy as hell. So I'll just put this over here, and this will go into the watch cleaning machine to ungum it. Now I got to walk the spring out, right? I can't walk the spring out with gloves on. I found that that's almost impossible, and you can, again, write me to tell me whether I'm full of crap or not, but I'll want to clean the mainspring as well. So I'll just grab it like this, and I'll just move my camera out of the way a bit, because you want to see me walking the spring out and losing an eyeball. So I don't want this spring to break, but if it does, no problem, I'll buy another one. So it's pretty stiff, this thing. So I got to make sure I got pressure on the edges. Oh, come on, don't be like this. I want to basically lift it up and get my thumbnail underneath here to walk this out. Oh, Jesus, Ricky. Hold that in a position there and just keep snapping back. This is something you don't do in public. Never walk out a mainspring in public, because I could snap this stupid thing, right? But I want to get it beyond this point here. There we go. So that, I think I got my thumbnail in there. Now I can take my tweezers and then ride it. Now if I walk this back, this should step out of the barrel a little bit, one at a time. This thing is stiff as hell. There, like that, and then walk it like this, and then like this. Now I'm going to step back a bit because this thing could get excited. Now I can put more of my thumb over the spring, because I'll be throwing the spring into the cleaning machine as well. So there we go. I'm just walking it out now, keeping pressure on that spring at all times. And when I get near the end, just sort of very carefully do that. And I can see that this is how it's hooked into the barrel. And if you look at the barrel really closely, you'll see that hook on the bottom there of the barrel. That's the barrel hook, okay? So you want to, when you put this back, you got to make sure that's hooked in properly. Now what I should have done is taken a picture so I know which way this thing goes, but I'll just take a picture like this. So it's looking like it goes clockwise. It goes clockwise into the barrel. So when I use my spring winder, I want to make sure I'm doing it properly, right? And I've got the springs a little tangled in here, so I just move that out of the way. And that will go into the washing machine, right? So I back off big time. And I'm trying to get my camera in the right position here so it's taking a beautiful picture of everything. So there we go. There's most of the parts, including the barrel and including all this yellow paper I have left over. I'll just get this out of the way. It looks really shitty like this. And I've shown videos on how to put this into the cleaning baskets. I'm not sure whether I need to show that. The method of actually putting them in the baskets, the cleaning basket, I can do that. I don't normally show that because it's just whatever. So, but I'm going to do that today. There's my cleaning baskets. There's the baskets right there, and that's the next thing to do, is to stack it appropriately into the cleaning baskets. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching the video. Thanks for watching the strip down. I know I talked a lot here, but hopefully you've learned a few things on maintaining pocket watches. And I'm not sure whether I'll replace the spring or not. It depends how much power I can get out of it. It looks a little bit set, so I can see if I have another one. I may have another Waltham spring like this, so we shall see. So thanks for watching the video. We had a little diagnostics issues in the past. I need to take this apart and clean that too. There we go. It just fell apart. Anyway, that's it. Thanks a lot. Hope you enjoy my videos, and I'm going to be dubbing over the front end because I was stupid and forgot to turn the mic on. Take care. All right, I'm a sucker for movies. So there's the mainspring in there. There's the bottom one stacked, and then each one of these has got parts in it. All the small parts grouped up nicely, and that's good. So that's in there, and I just make sure it's fitting nicely over the top of this, even though nothing really small can fly out of the bottom one. And then the next one has got wheels and screws in it, and again I want to make sure that I'll just hold this from the center and drop it down, and make sure that there's screws, wheels, and I've got the fourth wheel on the edge there, and I've put the wheels in their separate little containers so they don't touch each other and rattle against each other. And then I have the cap here, which I have a smooth side down, that way there's no gaps at all and nothing can escape. And then when this goes into the cleaning machine, it goes up, and there's 4 arms that hook in here and tighten this thing up nicely. So that's it. It's all stacked and ready. The only thing I didn't put in are the hands and the pallet fork. So, and I'll just save those over where the face is. So I want to save face. So I've got that, I've got the hands, and I have the balance, which I will clean with lighter fluid, and not in the cleaning machine. So there you go. The hairspring and the balance will be cleaned with lighter fluid, which works really well. I've used it over the years, and this is what the boys used to use in the old days. Not sure how long they lived, but they used lighter fluid. So again, thanks for watching my videos, and I'll catch you later.